Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. One of the reasons we're doing a show today on having a pain-free back is that years ago I was a tournament tennis player. I was a serve and volleyer, and I was introduced to the Gokhale method through a friend of mine who showed me one of the exercises. And Esther Gokhale, if you don't know who she is, she's the author of 8 Steps to a Pain-Free Back. And she started the Gokhale Center about 20 years ago, and she's helped thousands of people get free of pain through the systematic process of restoring pain-free posture and movement. Now, what led her to do this is her own problems with her back during pregnancy and also crippling back pain after surgery on her back. And of course, we know that necessity is the mother of invention, but it's very hard for many of us, particularly when 80% of the American public has low back pain, to believe or to accept that there are certain exercises and ways of moving our body that will optimize what Esther Gokhale calls primal architecture. It is my great pleasure and an honor to welcome Esther Gokhale to It's Rainmaking Time. Welcome to the show.
Such a pleasure to be with you.
The first thing I'd really like you to explain is, what is primal architecture? Because this is really the basis of your method.
True. And it's the kind of posture and movement patterns and architecture, I call it, that you observe in very young children, 2-year-olds, for example, that you observe in our hunter-gatherer ancestors, or don't even have to go that far back, our great-great-grandparents, as evidenced in artwork in the museums and photographs and so on, and also in our counterparts in pre-industrial populations around the world today. So all of these groups of people share the same characteristics in their posture, the same shape of their spine, the same ways of bending, and so on. And that is what I call primal posture. And the Gokhale method helps people recover that, restore that.
Many years ago, when I was introduced to somebody's translation of a part of your method, I must admit that while tennis requires precision and timing, and there's a subtleness that's not obvious to onlookers, the subtlety that was translated to me vis-a-vis your methodology seemed to my conscious mind as not being rigorous enough, the way I looked at it at the time, to do anything with my own pain. So I was open to it at the time, but then I kind of threw it off to the side and said, it's not going to be rigorous enough to affect my body. I'm in too much pain. And I was wrong. And particularly after reading 8 Steps to a Pain-Free Back, it's obvious that if I would invest in the method that's involved in driving, sitting, walking, sleeping, things you do hours every day, that this could work for me. But talk to those of us who are not sure and have had to go to back surgery like yourself. What happened to you?
It's one of our challenges, working with people, that they have already tried so many things that have failed, and they've been through an emotional roller coaster, investing time, investing money, investing their energy, and they've been disappointed. And so there is a resistance to getting your hopes up. And so that is one of my challenges, and the challenges of my whole team of teachers, convincing people to give this a try. And especially since it's simple. People look at us and think, well, so you're going to teach me a slightly different way to sit and a slightly different way to bend and lie down, and that's going to help fix my pain that 24 medical professionals have already tried to help me with, and it hasn't worked. And so they're skeptical. And so that is our challenge, is to induce people to give it a try. And usually, if they give it a chance, if they come see us we have 45-minute sessions, they're usually sold, because we can very easily demonstrate to people, where their distortions are from what they used to have when they were 2 years old, and from what their ancestors used to have, and what's different about their structure from, say, a village African's spinal shape. And then we can usually show them the connections between their particular compressed areas and pronated feet and slumping shoulders and so on, and their particular challenges. That they might have repetitive stress injury, they might have scoliosis, and it's very easy to show them how these measures will help. It's very intellectually compelling, and we also put them in these positions, and it feels comfortable. It feels strange, but in a way it feels strangely familiar. It's what they used to do when they were little. So, people have to be open-minded enough to get the book or watch the DVD or come for a session, and that usually does it. Then they see that there's depth, there's thought. It's a well-considered process, and it's something quite profound there.
Now, you were born in India, right?
I was actually born in Holland,
okay.
My mother being Dutch, but my father being Indian. I was raised in India. And then I came to this country when I was 15.
When did you start to have back problems? What happened to you?
Well, I had a couple of incidences early in my teens. Like I was in college and someone dared me to put my leg behind my neck because I was and am rather flexible. And I did that without warming up, and I ended up with a big back spasm in an episode, and I didn't understand it. There's a lot of fear when something like that first happens to you, and you have no idea what's going on, except that it hurts like heck. And I ended up in the ER, and, it died down. But then I had a couple more episodes after pulling a windsurfing sail, and then at that time I ended up 5 days on my back with but the worst of it was when I was pregnant with my first child. I was 9 months pregnant. I had horrible sciatic pain down my left leg. I wouldn't respond to anything, not conservative measures, not alternative measures, and I was walking around the block every 2 hours during the night to try and get my back out of severe spasm. It wasn't livable. And then the MRI showed a very large herniation at L5-S1, and so I opted for surgery. And it was a big shock to my system because I'd always been very healthy, and I'd been a yoga model in Bombay, very athletic, and it was a shock that something that drastic would happen to me in my mid-20s, moreover. And but the surgery helped some, but I still had twinges, and I wasn't allowed to carry heavy things, and I was advised not to have any more children because I had bulging discs and a vulnerable back and so forth. So that was a big compromise for me. And in spite of following all the directions, I ended up having a reherniation of the same L5-S1 disc, sciatic pain all over again. They were offering me a second surgery. So this was not looking good. You don't want to make a habit of back surgery. And so I was forced to cast a wider and wider net, and that was the beginning point. That's how I came to all these things.
Now, you went to many different countries and many different places in your research.
Did.
Talk about that.
Yeah, so, I studied techniques that were already being taught, and I've been influenced by a number of things. So that was my first point of departure. And Feldenkrais, Alexander technique, Bess Mensendieck's technique. The one that has influenced me the most is Noel Perez's. Hers is more anthropologically informed posture work, and that really resonated for me because I grew up in India, and my mom, being very much an Indophile, was always taking us to villages, and on every holiday we'd go to some tribal area or village area, and she would always be pointing people out for how remarkably they could labor without getting into trouble. Like the fruit sellers would have these huge baskets on their head, and the sweeper at home could clean the whole house on her haunches, and so on. So my eyes were kind of tuned, and this resonated for me. It made sense that the solution had to lie in how one moves one's body.